G'day mates, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is a super exciting one. You have been asking me for the longest time to do a tier list. I've never done one before, and this is going to be my first. I'm going to be ranking the best seasons of Chapter 2 based on arena and competitive, which was the best competitive season, which was the worst competitive season, and which was the best arena and which was the worst arena. Some of you guys are definitely going to disagree with me on this one. I have some bold takes, but I want to talk about it, and I want to compare it to the current season because I would argue we have one of the best competitive seasons we've had in a really long time. It's shaping up to be a fantastic meta, but why it's one of the worst for arena. So let's jump into it. I've never done one of these before, but I want to see if you guys like the tier list video today and you want more tier list videos, please chuck a like on it. If this video gets over 5,000 likes, I will do another tier list. I promise. Straight off the bat, I'm not going to be talking about every single season because I think some of them just aren't worth talking about. I'm not going to talk about Season 1, Season 5, and Season 6 because for me, they were just very, meh seasons. They weren't too great competitively. They weren't too great for arena. I just think especially Season 5 and Season 6, we just had next to no map changes. We had really stale metas that were really quite boring for arena. They made decent competitive metas, but I think Season 7 has found a lot better of a mix of being quite good competitively. I would argue possibly going to be the best season we've ever seen competitively of Chapter 2, but unfortunately a really boring meta. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be ranking them out of 4, with 1 being the best and 4 being the worst. Right now, I'm going to be talking about Chapter 2, Season 2, Season 3, Season 4, and Season 7. And right out the gate, I think that Season 2 competitively was the worst season. This is for a number of reasons. I think it was because we had solos, we had a bunch of mythics, aim assist was possibly the worst it's ever been. Controller players, don't come at me. I'm sorry, you have to admit, Chapter 2, Season 2, aim assist for linear with mythic drum guns and everything else was just, it was too much. But arena-wise, it was the most fun. It was absolutely phenomenal. I'll get to these in a second. Season 3, I would argue competitively was the second worst season, but arena-wise was the second best. And you're seeing a trend here. Season 4, I would argue competitively was the second best, but the second worst. And then Season 7, our current season, is competitively the best, but also the worst for arena. You might see a bit of a trend there, and it's because, unfortunately, I think that really good arena seasons that are really fun, have a whole bunch of crazy cool stuff in it, unfortunately makes competitive really bad because it's really unbalanced. Whether you like that, Caddy Launcher, so much fun for arena. Absolutely terrible for competitive. It's a really sad paradox, and it makes some of the seasons really hard to balance, but I want to go into more depth. And already, if you have crazy takes or you think I'm wrong or you disagree, let me know in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your ranking of these seasons and see if you agree with me before I go into more detail on exactly why I've ranked them the way I have. Let's go in chronological order for me to go a bit more in depth. So Chapter 2, Season 2, in case you forgot, this was the mythic meta. This was when we had Grotto, this is when we had Shark, this is when we had the yacht. It was so much fun. There were so many cool, interesting drop spots. We had henchmen added for the first time. You could disguise yourself. You had to unlock the vaults. You could teleport out of the vaults. You could grapple around the map with an infinite grappler gun. You had a mythic minigun. This was by far to me the best season for fun. Arena-wise, this was the peak of Fortnite for me. Even before Chapter 1, I actually think Chapter 2, Season 2 might just be the peak of Fortnite for me. Season 8 was really fun in Chapter 1 and Season 7, but I think a lot of that for me is nostalgia, and the game was just, people were still figuring it out. You know, there was no skill-based matchmaking. There was still Siphon in pubs, I think, but if we're talking about in recent times, and as far as I can actually remember, Chapter 2, Season 2 was so good. You would drop Shark, you'd get your grapple gun, jump around the map with Sky's AR, you'd go Grotto so you could have some cool fights, camp out the vault and turn into a henchman. You'd go the yacht and you'd have some crazy battle with Deadpool at one point. It was just so much fun. There was crazy mobility, there was awesome items, and I felt like arena every time something was different. What do I feel like today? I really feel like playing with a grapple gun. Let me go get that. Or maybe I want a low-key drop and I'm just going to drop somewhere near the middle of the map. Authority was really fun. I've always argued that mythic drops, even if they don't give mythics, is one of the greatest additions to the game. A drop spot where there's nuances. You have to, you can hide in the vents. You can disguise and pretend to be an AI. You can wait for someone to come open the vault and then jump them and take the loot. You can hold yourself into the vault and fight your way out. I think vaults and mythic drops are just so good. They add a level of intelligence to drop spot fighting. It's not just raw mechanics. There's a lot of ways to outplay and outsmart your opponent. And it meant that in Arena, you got a good loadout. You had a drop spot that was fun, and if you won the drop spot, you walked out with loot that was worth it. And if you didn't win the drop spot, you had a good fight and you had fun doing it. Right now, there's no drop that feels like it's worth the spawn fight. If you get overly contested, it's just frustrating. You beat 3 or 4 people and you walk out with a gray pump, a green AR, and maybe some minis. Like, it just doesn't feel like you're rewarded for that. But then you put that on the flip side, competitively, you had one guy in the lobby who had a mythic minigun that could just shoot through your walls constantly and just eliminate you. You had one guy with a grapple gun who could just run from you constantly or take height from you every game. You had Sky's AR that in the hands of someone with really good aim could just get triple dinks and you were gone. Like, competitively, it wasn't great, but I wonder, is that solos? How would a season like Season 2 look in competitive trios? If there's a grapple gun in the game, yes, that's incredibly strong, but its power would be diminished if there was a full trio versing it rather than just one-on-ones. I would argue that mythics could actually be quite good in competitive if they're balanced, decent mythics, if it was trios meta. So that's what you gotta remember. With today as well, a lot of this is gonna be skewed by the fact that I'm not a huge fan of competitive solos. Yes, they're fun to watch and I have fond memories of them, but it's when I remember the community being the most toxic and having the most drama. It's when every single time a controller player won anything, everyone would complain about it. Every single time there was a tournament, someone would get dropped on, someone would get griefed. We had people taking mythics and dropping them in the ocean so another player couldn't get them. Every time a tournament was about to happen and you talk about who's gonna win, it was always about drop spots. It didn't matter how good you were. If someone was going caddy corners and getting the caddy launcher, they were gonna win that game, but then they'd go down on spawn the other 5 games. It was fun, but I don't think it was competitive. And that's what Season 2 is for me. Chapter 2, Season 3. This was the water season, and I think that sums up why I've ranked it the second best arena season and the second worst competitive season. Arena-wise, the map was completely different. It was so fresh and new. Everywhere you dropped just felt crazily different, and the map was constantly changing throughout the season. There would have been more map changes in just a few months of that season than we've gotten in almost the last year of the current map. It was just constantly evolving and updating, and the swimming element and the geysers and the fact that there was so much water made all the drops just look and feel really different, even if some of them were still the same. Obviously, like the bottom southeast section of the map was still the same, but it was just so incredibly cool. And then as the weeks went on, you were waiting for your favorite POIs to emerge, and they would be like half emerged and have a little bit of loot. Then there would be more emerged. There was just different levels to it. But competitively, this was caddy season. This was the caddy launcher, and it was the charged shotgun. So caddy launcher, terrible. One of the worst things I've ever watched in competitive. I just remember just every game. Who's got the caddy launcher? Oh, okay, he wins. Who's got the caddy launcher? That guy wins. It was so boring. It didn't matter who won the tournament because every game was just being won by the guy with the caddy launcher, but none of them could get it consistently enough to win the tournament. It just became a grief fest. We did still have issues, obviously, of aim assist. A lot of people just taking away the successes of anyone on controller. There was a lot of people maining the drum gun over using shotguns. This was also the charged shotgun, and however you feel about charged shotgun in the meta, I really enjoyed it for arena because it made the game feel fresh. The meta completely shifted. How everyone had to play completely shifted, and it was a big learning curve, and I'm the kind of player to enjoy that. I like the fact that it slowed down the game a little bit, rewarded more defensive players, and you really had to adapt and be clever. I thought that was at least fun. I don't think charge is better than the pump for the game in general. I'll put that out there now. I don't particularly like the charge in the meta competitively, but when it came in for the very first time in arena, it really just made the game feel new for quite a while. Trying to figure out how to use the charged shotgun alone made the game feel different. I think the grapple gun in this meta, the one that didn't just instantly grapple you, it was like the I can't remember what it was called, but it was like Jules Mythic Grapple. It let you pull out your glider and travel really far, but it wasn't as good in fights. This was really fun. It meant you could get this and W key really heavy, but when you were versing someone with it, it didn't feel like they had this ability to just Spider-Man on top of your builds every time, and just, it was really, really cool. I thought this season was great, and I think this will be my boldest take, saying that this is the second best arena meta, and people are definitely going to flame me for saying Season 4 Stark was the second second worst, but I'll get to that in a second. But overall, I think this is what I wanted from Season 7. I wanted aliens to come down, nuke the map, change everything. I wanted there to be like a war, so every few weeks a POI got destroyed and changed. That's what I felt like we needed right now. Right now, the meta isn't so bad, but I think constant map changes and a really fresh, cool new feel to the game would have been amazing. Maybe with the mechanic of flying around with low gravity in the same way we swim. Maybe there could be different biomes like that, where there's still hope that these things will come, but that's what I wanted on the launch of a new season. I wanted to launch with a crazy new map and then maybe slowly go back to the old map. I would rather that than start with the old map and it slowly get newer. Chapter 2, Season 4, and my boldest take, I think, today in this video, and the one that's going to upset the most people. Competitively, the second best, arena, the second worst. Now, competitively, this is tough. Again, the reason why it's the second best, I think, is because it's trios. I feel like Chapter 2, Season 2, and Season 3 could have been better in trios, even with all the mythics, than what this could have been, because pumps doing 200, every single person having one, and shockwaves and crash pads is, to me, one of the worst metas for competitive. I think that is absolutely terrible for competitive. I just think that because it was trios, it made it that little bit more manageable, and for me, it made it more competitive. But when you got to think about crash pads and shockwaves, I think they're really not good items in competitive. I like mobility that doesn't cause chaos or doesn't break apart builds or do anything to anyone else's builds, right? Like launch pads, that's a great example. Crash pads, you be chilling end game, you're vibing, I'm looking good, this is the game, I'm gonna win, and then just crash pad in your box, boom, one pump in the head. It was just so obnoxious and just didn't require any skill. Guys, I'm a boomer. If you ever watch my stream, I'm working on my mechanics, I'm getting more proud of my builds and edits, but overall, if nothing else, I have good aim. I think most people would agree with that by watching me play. Bailouts for me were fantastic. The amount of pros during this season that I was able to beat who were working me, absolutely dominating me, about to put me in the target, boom, 200 pump. You could argue that's skillful, but I would argue it's not. Bailouts were crazy. You should never have like 30, 40 people in the lobby with purple pumps running around that can 200 pump. It is just not healthy for the game, and it makes worse players beat better players quite often. Yes, you could W key a lot harder, and yes, Stark was so much fun to hot drop and just get a good gun and just run through the whole lobby. I fully understand why pros love this season for Arena, but I think for the average player, for the casual, it wasn't a fun season, and I just don't, I love playing with a spaz now because they're so hard to find, and I feel like an absolute god when I have it. In this season, if you were the one guy without a spaz, you felt like you were just completely naked and everyone was just going to destroy you. It just didn't feel rewarding, and shockwaves and crash pads just meant that the third partying and the mobility was just insane. People just teleporting, jumping all around the map, shockwaving in your box, shockwaving through your box, crash padding in your box, shockwaving away. Like, you get where I'm going with this. It was too much for me competitively and arena. I just think because it was the first season with trios, it felt good, but it also still wasn't anywhere near as good as the current season for competitive, because it still came down to who got Doom's Domain and who got Stark Industries, because either one of you was walking away with absolute god loot, and if you were uncontested, it was a battle for whoever would win the tournament. The placements across the regions were so ridiculously skewed to just Doom's Domain and Stark Industries. I think across the 7 regions, I would have to say, I think 5 won FNCS out of one of those 2 drops if they were uncontested. It was just insane. If you were uncontested and you had Dooms or Starks, you were winning FNCS if you were a decent team. And the only way you got it uncontested was if you were a good team. So I felt like it was a really annoying season for that, because again, as a commentator before every single tournament, that was the whole discussion. Or who's going to win today? Or who's dropping Dooms and who's dropping Starks? You just didn't really take into consideration anyone else. And it was overall a fun season, but it only started halfway through. The start of Chapter 2 Season 4 was so boring. Until we got Starks, it was incredibly boring. And then Starks just made that season. But I was only halfway through. You still have to account for the fact that we dealt with an incredibly boring map that was no different with no Stark, and again, a lot of really frustrating things in the meta as well. So this was a hard one for me to place because you're only basing it off half the season, but I know pros absolutely love this for Arena. I wasn't a huge fan. Maybe now that I consider myself a bit better, I would have enjoyed going back, but it felt too chaotic for me. Last but not least, our current season, Chapter 2, Season 7. Like I said at the start of the video, I'm not including 5 or 6 because yeah, they were good competitively, super boring arena, nothing changed, just not even really worth talking about. The current season I'm only going to talk about because obviously it's relevant to now to kind of bring it back. I think competitively, we are looking at one of the best, if not the best seasons in Chapter 2. Again, going back, if Chapter 2 Season 2 or 3 was trios, maybe it could have been fun, maybe it was different, but I'm watching scrims right now. I've already watched maybe at least maybe about 20 hours of scrims so far this season and proper competitive games and tournaments, maybe more than that, maybe like 25, 30, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm really, really enjoying it. There's some issues with Storm Surge. I think the chug cannons and how many launch pads they are a little bit broken, but at its foundation, I think having launch pad as the only mobility is really, really healthy and really cool. And when it's trios, if this was a duo season, I'd be even more excited, but overall, it's shaping up to be really awesome. It's hard to know just yet until we see tournaments, but based on scrims, I'm incredibly excited. But arena-wise, it's got to be last. It's boring. The game is boring right now. I'm sorry to say that, but I'm playing Arena a lot at the moment just because Arena points reset. Australia is on school holidays, so I'm actually getting queue times. I'm playing a lot of trios and duos with other pros and just running through the lobby, and it's fun for that reason, but the map is exactly the same. The meta feels exactly the same. There are none of those fun items. There's no fun mythics. There's no fun drop spots. You can't upgrade your weapons, so you don't feel like you're running through the whole lobby. It's just, I'm dropping sweaty sands to hope I get an NPC to sell a spaz or a scar and hoping to grab the IO chests. And most of the time I'm walking out with a blue pump and a green AR and some shields. Like, it's not fun. It just straight up isn't, unfortunately. I'm still enjoying the game just because I'm enjoying the process of getting better. I'm spending a lot of time in creative, and then when I go in arena and I play a fight really well, I get a sense of satisfaction from that. But I imagine how much better that would feel in a drop where I'm like, yeah, man, let's go shark. Let's grab the grapple gun and W key some people. I really want to get Grotto's minigun, you know, or hey, it'd be really cool to drop Stark and let's try to drop like a 20 bomb before we even leave. Like, I just could imagine how much more fun arena would be in any of those other metas. I just think it's fun because I'm focusing on self-improvement, and just look at the content being made right now on Twitch and YouTube. It's fair to say that the game is a bit stale, and I think everyone's still waiting for those crazy new map changes or those crazy new item changes that keep being promised, but we haven't really seen. We've already thought that Sweaty Sands was going to turn into Tilted. We thought Coral Castle was going to get destroyed. We thought all this crazy stuff was going to happen. We're going to have a low gravity biome. We haven't had anything in Arena anyway. They took the only things new about this season out of Arena. They took the UFO out. They took the railgun out. They took the recon scanner out. Everything's been taken out. And Arena is basically last season with launch pads, less spaz shotguns, which make Arena fun, and a few purple trees. Like, tell me if I'm being dramatic here or I'm being too harsh, but this season hasn't changed anything. So for me, that's why arena-wise, it's got to be last. But competitively, I think the game's in a pretty good state right now, and tournaments themselves make it fun. You don't need to change much to make tournaments fun. It would be interesting to see if, like I said, a mythic season with trios was fun and was good competitively. I could be wrong, and it might not be. I genuinely don't know. But that's what I have to base it off. Alright guys, that does it for another video. Like I said in the intro, if you like this video, please chuck a like on it. If this does get 5,000 likes, I'll do another tier list. I'm going to keep them to like items, seasons, drop spots, things that don't create as much drama. I don't like doing players. I don't like doing orgs. It's just, you tell someone that looks up to you that they're a tier 3 pro and they thought they were tier 2 and they're crushed. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm sorry. I'm never going to do tier lists like that. I would like to hype up a player and say they're good without having to say that they're better than someone else, or that player is worse, or this player is a tier 5. Like, that's not my style, but I had fun making today's video and I like giving you guys my thoughts. So if you want more tier lists, make sure you chuck a like on the video. Comment down below if you agree, disagree, what parts did you like or dislike. And yeah, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world to me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.